Number 4 from the Vestron collection is Return of the Living Dead 3, released in 1993 and directed by Brian Yuzna. Unlike the first two Return of the Living Dead movies, this one got to be its own thing. The creators were only given two rules. They had to have brain eating and use trioxin. So they took those rules and made a romantic horror film. Now before you say, great, this is gonna suck and skip the video, hear me out. Because this movie is actually pretty awesome. The two main lovebirds of this film are Kurt and Julie. Now they sneak into Kurt's father's army base and they find out that scientists are using trioxin gas to reanimate dead bodies for military use. After a while of hiding in the vents, this worker gets spooked, so the couple takes off and heads back to Kurt's house. Kurt's dad then gets home and wants to have a talk with him about being relocated to Oklahoma City. This starts an argument because Kurt doesn't want to move again. So him and Julie take off on the motorcycle, they lose control and get into an accident that ends up killing Julie. Now Kurt's freaking out. So what do you think he decides to do? Yep, you guessed it. He takes her body back to the military base and uses the trioxin on her. It works and Julie's alive again. But as she starts to realize what happened to her, a zombie breaks loose, so they take back off on the motorcycle. Back on base, the father is reviewing the security footage. He sees his son and Julie and finds out that she was brought back to life. So this lady is explaining that since there's a strong connection between the both of them, she is less likely to attack them. But if her brain shuts down, it may be too late. Now Julie's starving, so they pull over to this convenience store. She grabs a bunch of snacks and starts eating them on the floor. There's also a gang in there as well that ends up robbing and shooting the store clerk. As they go to take off, Julie grabs one of the thugs, bites into his arm, and this is when she realizes she's not hungry for food. She's hungry for flesh. The cops show up, so the couple escapes through the sewers. Julie then finds this spring and starts twisting it through her skin because the pain cures the hunger. She is now terrified at what she's become, so she tries to kill herself by jumping off a bridge. Kurt climbs down the bridge and is trying to look for her body along the river. He ends up stumbling into this homeless guy by the name of Riverman. Back at the crime scene, the gang drives up and sees all the cops. The guy that got bit shows the other thugs what happened to him, and now they want revenge. They also know that the only way out of where they were is through the sewers, which also leads to the river. Riverman is now taking Kurt and Julie back to his little home in the sewers, and not long later, the gang finds them. Now, I don't want to spoil everything that happens at Riverman's little hideout because there's a lot of awesome action horror there, especially when the thugs find him. But I will say, this is when we get introduced to the Julie that's on the cover here. She is definitely the hottest zombie chick I've ever seen. Eventually, Kurt and Julie make it back to the army base yet again, to where he decides he can't live without her, so he has Julie bite him, and they head over to this crematory pit. Kurt's father's now trying to stop him, but there's nothing he can say or do because the damage is already done. So they turn up the heat and die together. Now, I left out a few scenes in this review because if you haven't seen this movie yet and decide you want to, trust me, you would rather see those specific scenes for the first time instead of hearing about them. Some fun facts about this film is the cadaver at the beginning was actually a homeless guy that they found and gave him a role. Also, if you saw my waxwork video, then you may have noticed the director from those two films, Anthony Hickox, acting in this movie where his character's name ends up being Dr. Hickox. This was Melinda Clarke's first horror movie, and she decided to play the role of Julie as a drug addict, and she did a phenomenal job at doing so. Return of the Living Dead 3 is definitely a must-see for any zombie fan. It's got a little bit of comedy, but it's definitely more of a serious romantic horror film that's extremely fun, and I couldn't recommend it enough. I give Return of the Living Dead 3 a 4.5 out of 5 gems. Have you seen Return of the Living Dead 3? If so, what did you like or not like about it? If not, are you willing to give it a shot? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you on the next